Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome into Trainer Talk Tuesday. Hope your week is off to a great start. Hope you're having a great day today also. And we want to talk to you a bit today about the food pyramid, what it is versus what it should be, according to Never Settle Fitness and our, what do you want to call it, ways,
our method and way of thinking,
methods and ways of thinking, and what have worked for us and our clients in the past and right now in the present. So let's jump into it.
So team, with the United States being one of the most unhealthiest countries in the entire world, and we know that 90% of all chronic disease is dietary, then we can assume that what we're doing as a society is not working for us. So it's really time to kind of just dive in deep and challenge that way of thinking of what's being presented to us as a whole. And we're going to specifically do this in regards to the food pyramid, as Nate mentioned. And this is what's being taught right now. Currently, this is what's been taught for years. So when you were in school, this is what was suggested. It is still the same today. So if your children are in school, this is still what's being embedded into their brains about what healthy food looks like. So this is from the society's viewpoint, and this is what is being taught.
You
can throw it.
I guess I'm going to turn around to show this and let Larissa do her part, and I'll jump in as need be.
All right, guys, so currently if you were to open up a textbook, this is what would be shown to you for what is considered the ideal way of eating. Now, if we think of terms of how the food pyramid is set up, they are going to list the thing of most importance at the bottom, okay? Why? Because they think that this is going to be the foundation of what your eating and your meal should look like. So currently today, they are listing starch as the most important food category for Americans to eat. So when we think of starch, we are going to think of things like pasta, rice, breads, cereals, okay? These are falling in the starch category, and as of today, they are recommending that Americans, including your children, get 6 to 11 servings of those types of foods every single day. Now, if you take a look at what you're currently eating, you probably are basing your meals around this structure where your base of all your meals is a starch, right? Typically, we'll add pasta as the foundation, right? We start with that, or we'll add some type of bread or rice, like grain, as the bottom of our plate, and then we stack everything else on top, or we complete our plate according to how much of this category that we put on there. The issue with this is one of many things. When we think of starch, we're automatically going to think of gluten. Okay? Now, not all starch has gluten in it, most of it does. But we're going to think of gluten, and if you have ever watched our channel before, you know that gluten is one of the 5 inflammatory foods, which means that it's going to cause inflammation in the body. Regardless of who you are, where you're from, your genetics, it will cause inflammation in your body, and this is the foundation of what they are suggesting for you to eat. Now, there are some things that are naturally gluten-free that are still starch-based, things like rice, okay? The issue with those things and having them in a large amount, or really any at all, is that it's going to affect your blood sugar levels drastically and in a negative way. So when you're basing your food choices around this category, you are going to make yourself more likely to develop things like diabetes, okay? Now when we think of diabetes, we're automatically thinking of sugar, sweets, cakes, cookies, right? But we don't think of it in regards to starch. But starch is processed as sugar in the body, so it's going to have a similar effect here. So it's very important that we really eliminate or completely or at least reduce the amount of starch that we are taking in because of these reasons. Gluten, again, which is going to be in most things that are starchy, right? It has been linked and been proven to attribute to autoimmune diseases. So if we're giving this to ourselves and to our children for the course of many years, and then all of a sudden you start showing symptoms for celiac disease, or you start having digestive problems, or you start having pain like arthritis, or you start having issues like lupus, right? Fibromyalgia. These are all things that have been linked to eating starch in large amounts, particularly things with gluten in it. So it's very important for us to disregard this as the basis and foundation, because there's too many studies that show that it should not be the foundation of what we're consuming. Okay? 6 to 11 servings is what they're suggesting. That's a lot. All right, next they're going into veggies. All right, 3 to 5 servings. A lot of professionals these days are going to actually recommend that you need up to 9 servings of vegetables a day. Then they have fruit with 2 to 4 servings. Okay, so obviously we're not going to argue that that should be a huge bulk of what you're eating. Just take note of and question, why is this less of a priority than starch? Okay, why are fruits and vegetables not ranked higher when it comes to the food pyramid? All right, after this we have dairy and meats, nuts. And when they put meat down here, they are talking about animal protein. They do not go further into education when it comes to vegetable protein. So here, when we look at this, dairy, again, if you've watched our channel, this is another inflammatory food. Dairy is going to cause inflammation, and we know that inflammation causes the overproduction of mucus, and we know that the overproduction of mucus causes chronic disease. That's rated pretty high. It's still ranked of high importance here. 2 to 3 servings a day is what they are recommending. Now, if you guys know anything about dairy, separate and apart from inflammation, we know that dairy has a protein in it, and that protein triggers dopamine to the brain, okay? And if you know what dopamine is, it's that feel-good hormone that we've discussed in the past. So eating dairy is going to make you feel really, really good for a short period of time, very similar to how Class A drugs will do, and then you're gonna crash afterwards. I say that because that protein is highly addictive. It's been proven to be addictive. It's been proven to have similar effects to other drugs that we would ban here in America, but yet they are recommending it to you and to your children. Okay, same thing over here, animal protein. They just say meat, all right? So they're talking about red meat, fish, poultry, eggs, anything that comes from an animal that you're getting your protein source from. Now, I don't have a lot of issues with that, except that's it. They don't go into further detail about what kind of protein, the quality of protein, or the frequency in which you should be eating it, as far as getting in higher quality amounts and like the difference between animal protein and vegetable protein. Because if we're being honest here, we should be consuming more plant-based protein in its whole form than we should be animal protein. Why? Because animal protein is acidic in nature. And although it's okay to have, America is definitely putting an emphasis on processed meat, okay, which we know is not good for the body. That has been proven. There's also, red meat. Those things should be eaten sparingly, a couple times a month. Even things like the quality of it, like where are you sourcing? Where is this protein being sourced from? How are those animals being taken care of? What are they being fed? These things all matter when we're talking about the quality of animal protein, and they don't really go further into that. They just say meat and nuts. And again, they're not classifying plant-based protein in this, which is really what you should be consuming more so if we're talking about in regards to meat or animal protein versus plant-based protein, right? Last thing here, they are saying to use sparingly, consume oils, fats, and sweets. Now, although they are ranking this the least bit of importance, refined sugar, what you find in sweets, is also an inflammatory food. And so you shouldn't be consuming it really at all. I think that we have this mindset in America where everything in moderation, but we're not taking into consideration that any amount of these things are going to contribute to chronic disease and illness. So they're saying use it sparingly, when I would suggest that you eliminate it altogether in a perfect world, but absolutely you should not be making this anything that you are doing with any type of regularity. And they are suggesting that that's okay. Even though they don't want you to have it a lot, which I agree with, it's still made the cut for what your diet should consist of. In my opinion, it shouldn't be on there at all. Even if that means that you do consume it time to time, it shouldn't be ranked of that much importance, even though it's ranked with the least of bit of importance on this graph. It shouldn't be on there at all because it's not necessary for health or to complete a meal. So it really shouldn't even be in this category. This is what's being taught to your children. This is what's been taught to you. And this is probably what's going to continue being taught. But as I mentioned, with disease just running rampant, and we know that 90% of all disease is dietary, we can assume that this is not working for us. This is incorrect because we're not getting good results from it. We're not reaping benefits from this type of eating. I'm passionate about this, if you guys can tell.
You know, guys, the only thing I can think about, and I wanted her to stop at some point early on when we was talking about starch, because the only thing I can think of is when she was like, the type of starch that you have, the only thing I can think about was just creasing my jeans back in the day and using a lot of starch to get that perfect crease in my jeans. So that was the only type of starch that I really like to use, but yeah, I hope you got that.
All right.
Now let's move over to what your food pyramid should look like. How you should be eating with regularity, and like you kind of said there lately, in a perfect world, right? If everything was right and if things were taught the way it was supposed to.
This is what we should always be striving for.
This
should be the example. This should be the example, right? That doesn't mean that we're not going to fall short of this sometimes. We're not perfect. We're not expecting you to be perfect.
That is funny. I noticed that you put this here.
This should be the standard.
They don't talk about fluids on the original pyramid.
Not at all. Actually,
If they did, there'd probably be coffee on there, wouldn't it?
No, well, actually, fun fact, on a lot of food pyramids, they won't add it on the actual pyramid, but they'll add a little side note off to the side of the food pyramid that says, drinking alcohol, sparingly or with moderation. So that made the list in some of them. Again, another inflammatory food. I don't think I need to go into further detail about how alcohol can be damaging to the body, but that even made the cut in some food pyramids that are being exposed to our children. So now, this is the standard. Never settle fitness. If we could rewrite the food pyramid, this is what it would look like. This is the ideal situation. This is the standard that we should all be striving for. And again, you should always set your standards high, so it forces you to be put in a position where you are going to grow, okay? So the basis, there's three different categories here, which we would consider the foundation. Much like they considered starch the foundation, these are gonna be our foundational foods. And we suggest that you eat these foods generously, or drink, right? That you are going to consume these things in generous amounts. So what does that mean? Have as much of it as you want, as much of it as you can stand. All of your meals should be based around these things, and that's going to be water, okay? We are made primarily of water, so it only makes sense to give your body what is the most natural thing to it.
Speaking of, I'm getting a little tardy with my sandwich today.
Most Americans are clinically dehydrated. Why? Because there's not an emphasis put on the importance of consuming water and staying hydrated and how that affects our health. The next thing here for the foundational foods are leafy green veggies. And yes, we did distinguish between regular veggies and leafy greens. Why? Because the leafy green vegetables are going to have the highest content of nutrients when we're talking about vegetables in general.
And
So,
real quick, let's rewind back to water, because the last time I posted about this on social media, I got a lot of, not a lot, but a few, because there was always a few people out there that wanted to push back about too much water and water intoxication. Can you touch on that for a minute? Because obviously there is a such thing as too much of a good thing can be a bad thing, but guys, that really takes a lot, and it's really about how you are applying it. And when it comes to water intoxication, guys, for you to get water intoxication, you will have to literally just chug and consume an uncomfortable amount of water in a very short period of time, meaning that you utterly drown yourself, right? You will literally have to put yourself in such an uncomfortable state that your body is going to reject it in most cases when you even try to, because it is not something that is going to be good for you. It's going to be a lot to indulge in at one time, and quite frankly, which is why it'd be bad for you, your body is not meant to take in that amount, which is why if you go into water and you start chugging in jugs of water, your lungs are going to explode on you in no time.
I mean, I think you just said it there. I mean, that's always been a strange argument to me, because as Nate mentioned, for someone who is actually drowning, all right, you have to think of the position that that person is in, and even the body's natural reaction to fight it, okay? You're not going to accidentally do that. It's going to be very difficult for that to happen, really impossible, unless you are like in some type of like water chugging contest, and again, you're trying to drink and just absurd amount of water in a very short period of time. I mean, we're talking like minutes that you're just like guzzling it down.
Yeah, and if you think that, oh, well, all of your passages are closed so you can't breathe while you're drinking, which is why you drown because you're submerged, I know that's what you could be thinking. No, even if I pick up this jug right now, in most cases, unless you like forcefully maybe think about it, which I never tried, but it's natural for me to close my air passages when I'm drinking water. And as soon as I'm done, which is why if you drink a lot at one time, you take a big gulp, you immediately gasp for air as soon as you're done, because your body is naturally going to fight against that reaction, guys. So, against that action. So, again, that does exist. We're not saying it doesn't, but no one, no trainer, no health enthusiast, or anybody, nutritionist, dietitian, is going to recommend that you drink an uncomfortable amount of water in a short period of time. They're going to recommend you do it consistently over a period of time and make that regular. And once your body is hydrated and adapted and accustomed to having more water and it's not retaining it as much, you're going to naturally crave it more, because your body's not going to be holding on to it as more, because it's going to be used to getting it with regularity. So.
No, and I really hate that we even have to address this issue, because as I mentioned earlier, the overwhelming majority of Americans are considered clinically dehydrated. So why are we trying to tell them to not drink water when they're medically being categorized as dehydrated?
Which
Okay?
is why when the majority of you are
sense.
rushed to the hospital, one of the first things that you're
IV.
attached to is an IV.
Yep. So, all right, guys, drink your water. Just get it in. And you would, if you really take a look at what you're eating, you would see that you're probably drinking a lot of things that are not water, and you're actually consuming a lot of liquids. So that whole argument is flawed, because the majority of you are taking in a lot of liquids. It's just not the highest quality of one. All right, so green leafy vegetables, we went over that. They just have more nutrients in them than regular veggies. So those are going to be ranked just a little bit higher priority, but still part of the foundational foods are going to be the next things here, which are fruits and veggies in general. And when we're talking about fruits and veggies, if I can be a little bit more specific here, we're always going to recommend that you are consuming fruits and veggies that come from seeds. You know, like the plants or the fruit itself has seeds, okay? Why? Well, as believers, this is what God commanded us to do, so that's one point of it. So if it has a seed, we know that it comes from nature, we know that it comes from God. If it does not have seeds, then we know that it was genetically modified to some degree. Also, because we serve such an amazing God and He put seeds in the fruits and plants that we are eating, it's so we never go without. We always have an abundance, because if you have seeds, then you can always grow more food. If you're consuming foods that don't have seeds in it, then you can't replenish yourself when you run out. So it's just like, you know, the cycle of life here. This is what's going to keep us going. We want to make sure that we're getting these things of a higher quality, which are going to have seeds. Obviously, we want to, you know, shoot for things that are organic. Those things matter as well. But moving on here, now to the category of what we would suggest that you eat moderately. So definitely not the foundation, but still important. These should fill in the gaps of what's missing on your plate when you're looking at your meal. These are going to be sprouts and legumes, nuts and seeds, and then, yeah, that's it. So these are your proteins and amino acids. Now, you noticed here we're describing plant-based proteins. As I mentioned before, in the current food pyramid, that is not being addressed. So we're addressing that here, that we want to have more plant-based proteins and amino acids. That's not to say that you can't have animal protein, but you should definitely pay attention to the quality of animal protein that you're getting in. This should take priority as the plant-based ones, and then you can add the animal protein in between those things to just kind of to help you, or if that's what you enjoy. Again, we're putting an emphasis on the quality of animal protein that you're consuming, and then also making sure that you are making this like about, I would say, like a fourth of your plate. Okay, so if the foundational foods here, they're going to be like half of your plate. This should be about a fourth. Okay, now getting into here, the last things we say to eat sparingly. So these are things that you are only going to use as needed. These are your medicinal foods. So these are your herbs and microgreens, and then also things like seaweed and nutritional meat yeast. Now these things provide a medicinal effect. So if you are ill, you want to gravitate towards these things. And you only use them when you need it. Why? Because they have a medicinal effect. You're not supposed to consume herbs on a day-to-day basis. And I know, you know, a lot of people are getting into that where they're consuming seaweed every single day. There's a lot of powerful benefits to seaweed, okay? But you're not supposed to consume herbs every single day. They're supposed to use to complement where you're deficient in, or if you are ill or feel something coming on to kind of help get you back to full health and restore that. The reason we don't want to use medicinal foods all the time is because your body, just like, you know, with Western medicine, if we're talking about antibiotics or other medications, your body can develop a resistance to these types of foods, okay, because they're medicinal. Same thing in Western medicine. We do that because a lot of the Western medicine use plants as their foundation, right? Because plants are the only thing that can heal us. So they have to use that as their foundation. They obviously add other things into it that I would not suggest, because our plants are perfect as they are and they don't need any further ingredients into them to heal the body. But our body becomes resistant to these things if you use them too much with too much frequency. So only use them as needed. There's hundreds and hundreds of different herbs that can serve the same purpose, okay? So you're not going to like be without. You're not going to become resistant to all of them. There's so many different choices. It's really just about educating ourselves in these manners so we can really heal our body, prevent disease, and you know, live this holistic lifestyle where we are living a life of abundance and we are able to be well so we can pursue the things that God has called us to do. So you guys can quote me or correct me, I guess, if I'm wrong, but I want to say that you have about a 6-month window to use certain herbs with like regularity before your body starts becoming like adapted to it, and you'll have to switch them out. So still a long period of time. Hopefully you don't ever have to use herbs that long, but if you do have something serious, some type of chronic or terminal disease, that is something to consider, that you will have to switch those herbs, those medicinal foods out so you can continue to have the healing benefits of them.
All right, well, let's do a side by side. So we have what you're being taught and recommended, and we have what you should be doing when it comes to how you're eating, what the food on your plate looks like, and just the overall consumption of food and liquids on a day-to-day basis for optimum health. All right, guys? So you see what you're recommending you, and obviously, like I said, we're not here to debate. You can do your own research, but obviously we've done a lot, especially Larissa herself, and we have put these things to the task for our clients, and they have seen some tremendous benefits and even reversed a lot of these issues that you would need to go and see a,
Type of physician.
Yeah, any kind of physician or someone for. Nothing on this sheet here is going to hurt you for the most part. All of these things here are just going to help you pretty much just live a better life, help your organs function the way they were supposed to, and for you to have that overall better health. And in most cases, if you go and you see that physician, he's going to recommend that you start having some of these things in abundance to help cure whatever it is that is ailing you at the moment.
Yep, and as Nate mentioned, everything that we're recommending to you, there's no negative side effects to these things, okay? Minus unless you have like a nut allergy, which again goes back to other things that we discussed. But these things are going to hurt you. At the very worst, you're just not going to get the full benefit of the medicinal herbs if you're using them too much. But it's not going to hurt you. So, yep, keep that in mind, guys. Let us know what you think. Let us know if you're willing to make some changes to what you are consuming to promote long-term health, hope, and healing. And until next time, never give up.
Never lose hope. And
never settle.
All right, guys, look out for that workout coming at you for this evening. Be ready for a good sweat. And we'll see you back here next week, same time, same place, for Trainer Talk Tuesday.